Hey there, it's David from B2B. And in this video, I want to talk to you about an inbound growth funnel that you can use for your B2B company in 2026. So let me just have a quick sip of my espresso and we'll get straight into it. So who this is for is B2B companies. So if you're a services business, if you're an agency, a consultancy, software company, AI platform, or something like that, that's really who I've designed this video for and this training for. And either you're not generating any leads at all, or you're not generating as many leads as you want, or you are getting leads, but you're finding they're very low quality. And it feels like hard work. It feels like you're really grinding to generate the leads that you're getting already. And you're probably using some form of outbound. So maybe that's emails or LinkedIn. You're probably using lead magnets. You might be using a direct response type of an approach or type of a funnel or advertising. And you probably want inbound, right? So you want people, your prospective customers, to see you and your company as the experts and to come to your business and work with you. So you want new opportunities with your ideal customers to just come to you and kind of land in your calendar without feeling like you have to do a whole lot. And you don't want to constantly feel like you're selling and selling and selling and trying to get people to buy from you, trying to convince people to buy from you all the time. So if any or all of those apply to you, then I think this is going to be a really useful video for you. And in terms of requirements, like what you need in order for this to be a success in your business is you've got to be a genuine subject matter expert. And you've got to have a clear point of view. You've got to have a message that you can share with the marketplace. So this tends to work really well for established business people or established businesses who have been doing what they've been doing for a little while, or at least they have a unique perspective on an industry or on a marketplace. And then you've also got to be able to think long term. So you can't be desperate to generate leads today. And ironically, you'll probably get a lot better performance if you approach it with a abundance mindset. So typically, people who are desperate to generate leads don't do as well as those who just put valuable information out into the market and then allow people to come to them when they're ready. People can sense desperation if that's how you're approaching your marketing or your sales, in my opinion. So let me talk about this, and I want to get into the core concept of this video, which is really the new way of building a funnel, a marketing funnel or a growth funnel in 2026. So the old way, and you're probably familiar with this now, a lot of people would call this a direct response funnel, right? So typically you'll have an ad, on a platform like Instagram or Meta, and that will drive people to an unlinked landing page, which is an opt-in, which is basically, hey, give us your email address or give us your phone number or both in exchange for something valuable. So it might be a lead magnet, kind of a PDF that they can download, or it might be to get access to a training or a webinar or something like that. That's a very common approach. So they just land on an unlinked landing page. They decide if they want to opt in or not. They give you their contact information, and then they go to get that asset. So the next step would be, a landing page. Sometimes we have a video sales letter on there. Sometimes we have a training or a lead magnet or something like that. And then they go through and ideally they end up booking a call with us. Most B2B companies want people to book calls with them. And sometimes you'll have something that you can sign up for or purchase straight away. But for the majority of people, it's booking discovery calls, it's booking demo calls so that you can then sell them your thing. So that is the pretty traditional funnel. People have been using this for many years now, and it follows that kind of step-by-step, very obvious linear process. Now, that was incredibly effective maybe 5 to 10 years ago. And it's getting less and less effective now, and I'll explain why in a moment. But before I do that, I want to talk to you about the new way, which for me is the content funnel, content-led approach, the sort of demand gen content-led approach. So at the top of this funnel, you have top of funnel content. And this might be on platforms like LinkedIn, could be Instagram, which is really just to get attention and so people are aware that you even exist. You then have long form content that people can consume. So this would be long form videos like the one you're watching. There might be, for example, an email newsletter or a Substack or a podcast or something like that. Something that's longer form, that has more depth, that people can really get into the details with you. and you can do it at scale through content. You then have something that we refer to as growth assets. So these might be housed on your website, for example, where when people are ready to learn more about your business, about your services, and about your case studies, then they could just check those out on your website. And there's no opt-in. They don't have to give you their email address. They can just see how you think about the thing that you're doing. They can consume information about your company. They can consume information about your track record and your case studies. And then they can make a decision as to whether they want to book a call with you or not. So this for me is the new way to do growth in 2026. And it's incredibly effective right now. We have been using this system in my business and with our partners for 2 to 3 years now. And it's been incredibly effective. So at the moment, I mean, it's been probably 2 to 3 million worth of revenue that has been generated using this system in the last couple of years in our business, and then many multiples more of that for our partners. And basically what it looks like in practice, and kind of, I guess the differences is within the old way, this direct response funnel, you're kind of forcing people to buy in the way that we want to sell. You know, marketers love that step-by-step linear funnel because it's very easy to track. It's very easy to sort of tweak and optimize. But the reality is that people don't necessarily buy like that now. People want to consume information. They don't necessarily want to give people their email address because they know they're going to get spammed by hundreds of emails. And so marketers love to sell that way to buyers, but buyers don't really want to buy that way in 2026. And that's why I think it's getting less and less effective. It tends to still work well in a kind of B2C context. Like if you're selling a widget, or if you've got some, an e-commerce business and you're selling, I don't know, you're selling coffee cups or something like that, and you've got an ad and it goes to a product page and someone could just buy your thing, then that's great. Or if you're selling to beginners and beginner business people and so on and so forth. So you see this a lot in internet marketing world, right? People who are selling to beginners and they've got a business opportunity or something like that. But it's less good for established business owners and people who have been around the block a little bit and can kind of see what you're doing. The other thing that tends to happen is the leads are lower quality. So you probably get more leads, to be fair, but you'll tend to find that the quality of the leads is lower. So people will give you spam info, or the show up rates on the call will be relatively low or something like that. Now, with the new way, it's a very different approach. It requires a completely different mindset, which can be hard to do in the first instance. If you're desperate to get people's contact information and you're basically not doing that in the new model, then that can be a hard transition for you to make as a marketer or as a business person. And it's kind of that abundance. It's allowing people to buy from you in the way that they want to. It's allowing people to consume lots of information about you and your business, and who you are as an individual, what your company stands for, what your company track record is, and then allow them to buy from you in the way that they want to buy, rather than trying to sell to them in the way that you want to sell to them, if that makes sense. Typically, you get a lower volume of leads, total leads. Not always, but in general, what I've seen across all of the partners that we've worked with is that you see less leads in terms of total number of leads, but the quality is far, far higher. So it means people are much more likely to actually buy from you. So the close rate is better. They're much more likely to actually show up to a call. A lot of our partners will have show up rates 90% plus. Like I said, they're much more likely to buy. They tend to spend more with you. And they tend to just be higher quality individuals in general, right? You're not getting tire kickers. You're getting real high quality buyers who are sort of closer to that buying decision with you. So you'll get less leads, but they tend to be higher quality. And often if someone's consumed a lot of your content, they'll be very familiar with your approach and how you think about the thing that you're talking about. And often people will say things like, I feel like I already know you, when they join a call with you, or they'll be quoting things back to you that you've talked about in your content. And that's a really good sign. That's a sign that you're getting real resonance with the marketplace. And typically this new way works much better with B2B companies, which is most of my audience. Obviously, our business is literally called B2B. It's really what we specialize in. And higher value buyers, right? So if you're selling to established business owners, or if you're selling something relatively expensive, a good example of this is a partner that I'm working with at the moment, who are a really high-end agency working with e-commerce businesses. And so they're working with 7 and 8 figure brands, sometimes 9-figure brands. And so these are really like established businesses with big teams who are really great at what they do. And their services, they're charging thousands and thousands of dollars per month. Like it's very common for them to be charging 100K plus over the course of a year to work with them. And it's really unlikely to be able to sell an 100 grand contract to a high value company using this old way of doing things. Right? It's a little bit different if you're selling something inexpensive, or if you're selling something that doesn't require, time to make that buying decision, if that makes sense. But in terms of their business, they need this kind of content funnel. They need people to be able to consume information about their organization. They need people to be able to see their track record and then reach out to them about and inquire about potentially buying. And you'll find as well, it kind of flips the script in terms of who's buying from who. With this new way, like with the old way, it kind of feels like you're selling to them and you're trying to get them to buy from you. With the new way, it's like you're almost interviewing them as a prospective buyer and seeing if they're a good fit to work with you, because they're coming to you and they're seeing you as the expert. And that's what most B2B companies want. And with this partner I'm talking about, they don't need hundreds of new clients. If they were to sign a handful of great, high quality, high value businesses every month, they would be super happy. And that's where I recommend the new way, the content funnel. And I think this will be very effective for your business in 2026 as well. So I want to talk a little bit about why I think this works nowadays. Let me just take some more coffee here. So one of the reasons I think this works is that buying behavior has really changed a lot in the last decade, the last 5 to 10 years. And it's gone from being, the sellers having the power, and it's gone from that to now buyers really have the power. And so, previously it was more of a seller's economy. Now it's more of a buyer's economy. Like you had information and data that you could gatekeep as a seller, which you now can't. So it's much more of a buyer's economy, and you need to give your customers the power. You need to allow them to buy from you in the way that they want to buy, rather than selling to them in the way that you want to sell. And I think a really good example of this is, think about your own buying behavior. Let's say you're a founder, or you're a director, or you're a CEO or a leader within an established B2B company. Think about the last thing you bought that was a relatively high ticket thing, a software or an agency that you work with, or a services company or a consultancy. How did you go about that buying decision? Did you opt into a lead magnet and then you took a call from an SDR and you ended up buying it? Or far more likely, did you go to the people that you already knew, you consumed some content, you did some research, you spoke to your network, and then you ended up making that buying decision? So think about how you like to buy, and then design your sales process or your marketing process based on how you like to buy rather than how you want to sell. And that's a really big shift, which will make a huge difference on your results, in my opinion. The second piece is this idea of the 7-hour rule. Now, I first heard this, I think, from HubSpot. I have seen that Daniel Priestley has recently claimed this as his own. I'm not sure if he actually came up with it, but I don't really know exactly where the data comes from. But the idea behind this is that on average, people need to spend about 7 hours with you in order to reach a buying decision. And so I don't know where that 7 hours comes from. It sounds directionally correct to me. Like, this sounds about right. People need to spend a good amount of time with you before making a buying decision, especially in a B2B context, like I said, where we're buying something relatively complicated or relatively expensive, or both. Now, the old way of doing this is you do this with meetings, right? So you have a discovery meeting with someone, you have a follow-up meeting, you have several other meetings with all of the different stakeholders, And then after maybe 7 hours or so of time spent, people can make that buying decision. So you can do it with meetings, or you can do it with content. And I much prefer doing it with content. It allows you to keep a really lean kind of marketing and sales function. It allows you to do it at scale. It allows you to do it cross borders. And it allows you, I can create this video today, for example, and I don't have a huge audience, but thousands and thousands of people can see this video and it can influence thousands and thousands of people. And then we can have a really lean sales function at my company. At the moment, it's basically me and one other person doing sales. And we can close hundreds of thousands of worth of new revenue into our company with just a couple of people. So that's why I prefer doing this with content. And the new way of doing this funnel allows you to produce, it allows your customers to consume lots of your content before making that buying decision. The third thing is that the reason this works is that you don't get tire kickers. So there's nothing worse, in my opinion, than wasting your time with people who are never going to buy from you. I don't mind people wasting my money, but I hate people wasting my time. That is the worst, in my opinion. And so, spending time trying to sell to people who are never going to buy from you, or people who book calls with you and don't show up, or whatever, is the worst, in my opinion. And this rarely happens with the inbound content funnel because they're highly educated. They know much more about you. You're not pushing them to get on a call with you. You're allowing them to book a call in with you when they're ready. And they know how you think, and they're educated on your track record, and they see you as the expert. So you tend to get far fewer tire kickers, if any at all. Sometimes you get 0 tire kickers at all. The fourth piece is self-selection. So it allows prospective customers to select themselves whether they want to learn more about working with you or not. So it just means that the leads are much higher quality. You're not pushing people to get on a call with you. You're not pushing people to try and buy from you. You're allowing them to select when they're ready to buy, rather than trying to sell to them, if that makes sense. And then the fifth thing is timing. And this is massively important in B2B. And people often forget this, which is there's not really that much you can do to force someone to buy your thing and force someone to be ready to buy your thing. Again, thinking about that partner that I was talking about earlier, who, their clients spend thousands of, hundreds of thousands of dollars with them. People are not impulse buying that. They're not going through a great direct response funnel and then suddenly buying something that costs $100,000. They have to be ready to buy it. There often are catalysts or things that need to change in their business so that they're ready to buy. So the key isn't trying to force someone to buy today. The key is just being the person that they think of when they are ready to buy. And that's really the power of this content funnel, is that you could become the go-to within your industry or within your niche, whatever that niche is. And then it means, yes, there will be some people who are ready to buy today, and that's great, and they'll come to you and buy from you today. But there's all these other people, which is, it's probably 90% plus of the marketplace, or even 95% of the marketplace. All of these people, they'll just see you as the expert. And then when they are ready to buy, they'll come to you. And that's incredibly important. And again, this is one of the benefits of the inbound content-led funnel and why it is so effective for B2B companies. Now, what I want to do is just walk you through how our funnel works in practice and give you examples of exactly how our funnel works, and just break you down how this works in our funnel with the top of funnel content, the long form, the growth assets, and then the obviously call booking. So if you look at our top of funnel content, we're quite big on LinkedIn. So not huge by any stretch of the imagination. I have like 20,000 followers or something like that. And bear in mind, I've been creating content on LinkedIn for maybe probably more like 10 years now. Getting old. Didn't have so many gray hairs back then. Didn't have a beard back then either. So I've been on it for more than 10 years. We've actually spent hundreds of thousands of pounds on ads as well, which helps us to generate more followers and generate a bigger audience. But even then, I've not got a huge audience by any stretch of the imagination. And I think that's important to say, is you don't need a massive audience for this to work. So we've got we post pretty much every day on LinkedIn, content on LinkedIn, which kind of gets attention, shares some of our ideas, gets people aware of our brand. And what we really want people to do is see that and then start to consume some of our longer form content. So we do have long form content on platforms like LinkedIn. So the maximum video length on a platform like LinkedIn is 15 minutes. So you see a lot of these videos go to 14:59. And so people can consume that longer form content right from LinkedIn as a platform. And then ideally, we also want people to consume our long form content on YouTube. So we want people to come to YouTube to consume some of these longer form videos. Not all of these are super long, some 20 minutes, some kind of 45, 60 minutes. And actually, one of my goals at the moment is to produce longer form stuff, like where people can really consume in detail and really get to know me and figure out if they want to work with me and they want to work with my company. And that's really the goal of this funnel is I'm just showing up, today as my authentic self. And if people resonate with that and if they're interested in working with me, great. If they don't, that's completely fine. And so that's really the purpose of the long form content is to think in public. It's taking my ideas and thinking in public. And I just happen to be the thought leader within our business. And within your business, it might be someone else. But that's how it works in practice. So we want people to start consuming that long form content, become subscribers, and start to see the world the way that we see the world. Then typically what happens is at a certain point, when someone may be interested in learning a bit more about our business, they will come and check out the growth assets on our website. So for example, we have a video sales letter, which is a breakdown of we call it the market resonance framework, which is our approach to growth. So we're a growth company. We help people grow, obviously. And we have a unique approach to growth, which we call the market resonance framework. And there's a 25-minute video on our website, which basically breaks down the whole concept in a lot of detail. It's super valuable, and people can check that out and see if that's valuable for them. If it is valuable for them and they want some help from us, then they often will book a call to speak to us about us helping them implement it. And then people can also check out our track record. We've got hundreds of testimonials from people. We've got hundreds of video testimonials. We've got case studies of the examples of companies that we've had a huge impact on. And so typically what happens is people consume a bit of our long form content. They get interested in our perspective and our point of view, and then they go straight to the growth assets. And these are designed to basically take them from there and encourage them to book a call if they're a good fit with us. Obviously, some people sometimes skip some of these steps, right? So they might see a great piece of top of funnel content, go straight to the website and then book a call. But I'm just saying, in general, this is how people go through the process. And this is a key point that I'm kind of trying to make is that the old way of doing this, the direct response funnel, is very linear and it expects people to just go step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. But people are not like that. People don't buy like that, right? So people could skip step 2 if they want to and just go straight to watching our market resonance framework, check out our case studies, and then, book a call with us. Or they could stay in step 1 for a long time and not move into step 2, the long form content, for a while. Or they could be following our long form content for years before making a buying decision. Occasionally I'll get someone that says, I've literally been following you for 2 years and it just hasn't been the right time. And now it's the right time to speak about working together. So that's the power of this system, is it will compound for you over time and you'll get better and better results over time. So then they check out our growth assets, like I said, video sales letter, case studies, that kind of thing. And this is the result. So we get hundreds of highly qualified inbound calls, people coming to us and wanting to work with us. This is a snapshot from Calendly of people booking in strategy sessions with us. This is an export that I did of all of the calls we booked over a sort of 3 or 4 month period, just so you can see the number of, like, how consistent this system is and the number of calls that come through. Couple of other data points that I'll just point to as well, which I think are really interesting, is that our show up rate is incredibly high. This is from September 2025, so a few months ago. And you'll see that the show up rate was 90%. So either people are not showing up for that initial call, or they are showing up and they're not qualified to work with us. And so they haven't gone through to the next stage of our sales process. So either it's a show up rate or it's the fact that they're just not qualified. But to be at 90% is very, very strong. I've seen people who have a direct response funnel kind of boasting about the fact that they have a 70% show up rate. which in my opinion is not great. Like if 3 out of 10 people are not showing up to your call or they're canceling it last minute, I think that's a really bad sign. That for me is a sign that you're pushing too hard to get people on the calls. Obviously, you can't, it's difficult to have a 0% cancellation rate. But I think somewhere like 80 to 90% is very, very strong. And then we also have a really high close rate. So we close 40% of the qualified leads in this month, or nearly 40% of the qualified leads in this month. And so it just means it's so much more efficient, right? We're speaking to highly qualified people who are actually showing up to the call, and then we're closing them at really high percentages. So that's an example of how it works in our business. And let me just talk about, like, if you want to do this for your business, let me just talk about how that works in practice and what I would recommend in terms of next steps. So first of all, clarify your point of view and your content strategy. So make sure you're really clear on who you're trying to speak to and the transformation that you're providing those group of people, and then your unique point of view or your unique insight that you can share with those people. That's definitely an important first step. Then create growth assets around that principle. So sales letters, maybe case studies if you don't have case studies on your website. Thirdly, pick one top of funnel channel and one long form channel. And I've listed some examples here. For example, we use LinkedIn and YouTube, but not everyone needs to do that. Like some people don't like creating video content, so they might be better creating content on Substack or writing a blog or even writing a book or having an email newsletter or an audio only podcast or something like that. So that's your long form channel. And then LinkedIn is probably the best channel for most B2B companies. But you might want to use Instagram. You might want to be TikTok famous. You might be big on X or Twitter, or you might want to use Reddit or something like that. You can tell I don't spend all the time on social media because I ran out of ideas really quickly in terms of channels to use. But the point being here, you can have I would recommend one top of funnel channel and one long form channel. You can try and do everything in one channel, but I think sometimes there's benefit to both. Start by creating your long form content. So use the strategy and the point of view from one to create long form content around the key ideas within your content strategy. And then you start with the long form content, and it's quite easy nowadays with AI and some tools to then repurpose that content into top of funnel content. Okay. So let's say, for example, in our case, we're recording a long form video on YouTube, like the one that you're seeing today. There will be a transcript from this video. We can use that with some AI to then repurpose it into multiple posts for LinkedIn or for Twitter if we're on Twitter, or for Instagram, etc., etc. Now, in our business, we have a custom built AI tool that we use to do this. We also license that to our clients as well. But even if you're just using the generic sort of ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or whatever, it should be relatively easy to figure out how to make that happen. And so you've got your long form content, which then turns into shorter form, top of funnel content. And that's the whole funnel, basically, because you've got your assets at the bottom. You've got your long form content, and then you've also got your top of funnel content as well. And the sixth step is to create a feedback loop. So you're going to take the data from your content, see who engages with it, see what sort of reach it gets, the calls that you generate from your content, and kind of take the insights that you learn from that, from the prospective customers that you've spoken with, and you use it to re-clarify your positioning and your content strategy and your point of view. And it creates new content ideas. If you want to, you can update your growth assets and your sales letter if you need to. It creates new ideas for your top of funnel content and new ideas for your repurposing top of funnel. New ideas for your long form content. And that will obviously lead to new ideas for your top of funnel content as well. So the beautiful part about this is you create a flywheel that you get more and more resonance with your marketplace over time. And your content is more and more powerful, and it leads to getting more and more calls with prospective customers and more customers, which then creates a nice flywheel. So you learn from that, and it goes back into your content. And so you should get better and better results from this over time. More and more inbound calls, more and more people seeing you as the expert, coming to you and wanting to work with you. So those are the steps if you want to apply this in your business. And then if you want some help from me and my team to do this, book a call with me via this page on our website. So if you go to B2B, that's the website link here, there will be a page which looks a little something like this, where you can book in a call with me. It's either going to be with me or one of my team members. We'll chat to you, talk about your business, and see if we're a good fit to help you grow. So I hope this has been a really useful video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Thanks so much.